Hey guys, how's it going? I'm back here with another video, and this is the second video of the series where I teach you guys how to build a full stack application using ReactJS, NodeJS, and MySQL for the database. So in the last video we left off by making it so that whenever we run our project, it's going to go over all the tables that we wrote here as the models in our API and just create those tables to our database. And we can see that our database is appearing here on our left. We can see that we have our table called posts, and it contains all the columns that we need for our project to be working. So in this video, we're going to be building the endpoints that will be able to create, insert posts into our project, and also create different endpoints, like the endpoint to read all the posts that we have so that we can access it in our front end. So before we get into the tutorial, if you guys can leave a like, that will massively help the channel grow, because YouTube is going to push my video to more people. So if you could leave a like before we actually get into the tutorial, I would be really grateful for it. And now let's actually start implementing all the code. So right here, you can see that we left off by basically just having this simple Express API built in our project. But we actually now want to be able to make API requests, right? We haven't written any endpoints right now. We're just working simply by creating our server, connecting our database, and then just telling our server to listen to a port. But that's not done yet because we haven't created any endpoints. So to do so, we're actually going to be using Express's routing system, which will allow us to easily manage the routes in our application. And what do I mean by a route is, in our API, we're going to have our URL, right, which right now is like localhost 3001. And if I want to make an API request that, for example, creates a post or inserts a post into our into our table, we can create like a route called /posts. And then what happens is, whenever we want to insert something or read or delete or update something from our posts table, what we can do is we can just access all of those endpoints. We can make all of those requests to the endpoint with a route /posts. If you're not familiar with routes, I have a full video on how routes work and how you can actually implement them. I'm going to leave a card right up here, and I would recommend watching them because it is kind of like really basic stuff in regards to an Express server. So I would definitely recommend checking that out before you continue watching this video. So to actually implement routes into our project, what we have to do is we have to create a folder right here in our server, a folder called routes, like this. And this folder will contain all the routes that we have in our application. So one of the routes we want to have is, as I mentioned before, the posts.js. It's just a file that will contain all the routes related to posts, right? So inside of here, what we can do is we can start by creating a variable called express, which is going to be equal to an instance of the Express library over here. And why do we need Express? Because Express actually has a routing system already implemented into the framework. So all we have to do is we need to create here a variable called router and set it equal to express.router, like this. And now we're going to be using, it knows that we are using router as the route for this endpoint right here, right? At the bottom, all we have to do is we just need to module.exports router, because we are going to have to access this router in the index.js. So we actually have to do that. And inside of here, we can write as many requests as we want. We can write a router.get request. We can write a post request if we want. And this is basically the idea of how we're going to write our requests. However, for those requests to work, for our API to understand that this is a route, we actually need to get this router variable that we are exporting in our index.js and apply it as a middleware. So to do so, we're going to come here at the top, and I'm just going to create a comment right over here and call it like routers, just so we have an idea of where we're going to write the logic behind like importing and applying our routers. So all we have to do to apply a router and make it work is we need to write const, then the name of the file we want to import, so like post router, let's call it post router, and set it equal to require, and then the path to the routes folder where we have the router, the posts router, right over here. And now to apply this, to make this work, we grab the app variable over here and we apply the middleware for router. And to do so, we just do it like this. And instead of here, all we do is we first pass the actual route we want to use. So if you recall, we called it /posts. So we can just say /posts, and then we put a comma and just pass the post router, like over here. And if you're a bit confused about this, I definitely recommend watching the video about routers. But the thing is, now what we can do is we can make requests over here, like get requests and post requests. And all we have to do is we just have to pass a slash like this, and it knows that every request here is already in the posts route. So let's try that, just so you guys can get a visual confirmation. We have here our API running, as you can see, on localhost 3001. And if we go to /posts, it still doesn't show anything because we haven't made a get request for the /posts, right? So to do that, we can come over here and say router.get. And when you make a request like this, you can pass an anonymous function right over here that takes in two variables from Express. Those variables are standard for every request that you make, and they are the rec for request and the res for response. So I'm going to explain what they mean, but basically we can use both of them right now. And if we want to display something as a response from our API request to this route over here, all we have to do is we just have to say res dot send some sort of message. So let's send a message saying hello world, and you'll see that this should be working. If I refresh my page, yeah, it shows hello world, meaning that now we have a get request to this route over here that just sends a response saying hello world, which is great, right? We are able to test our API. It means it's working. However, this is not the most efficient way of testing your APIs. And the reason for that is because you can see we can only see the result of a get request. But imagine if we wanted to make a post request. How could we test like inserting or sending data in a post request without like having a front end, right? So how would we do that? Well, there's something called an API tester, which we can download, and there's many different options you can choose from. There's Postman, which is really famous, and there's Insomnia, which is the one I actually use. And basically it's just a program over here that when you download, you will be able to test API requests to any API that is running currently in the world or in your computer. So all we have to do is, and I'm going to leave the link for Insomnia in the description, you just need to come over here, create a new request, give it a name. So we're going to call this request something like insert or create post. So we're going to actually create a request which is a post request. So when you just change this to post, this is going to be the request where we actually send a new post to our database. And we also need a get request, right? Because we want to be able to see all the posts that we have right now. So it's just going to be a get request like this. And all we have to do now is we just need to put the URL for our API over here at the top. So we can put it like over here. And this is all we have to do. I'm just going to delete this stuff that I accidentally created. But basically, now we can test and see the results of the request over here. Right now, we only have a get request, which shows hello world. Let's see if that's actually what's returning. Let's come to the get all posts, and you see that in the get all posts, we are sending a get request to this URL, which is exactly what we have currently in our code. We have a get request to the /posts route. So what do we do now? We can, if we run this, it should return the thing that we put over here, which is hello world, inside of Insomnia. So let's see this. You can see it says hello world, which means it's working. And you can see that this isn't JSON. This is just a web page. But if you want to return something as JSON, all you have to do is you just have to put JSON over here. And you'll see that when I run this, it should return as if it was JSON. Now that we have this done, let's write our requests that are going to allow us to insert data into our database. So to do that, we just come over here and say router.post, because we're going to create a post request. And it's going to be, again, just an empty slash like this. We're going to grab a rec, a res, and we're going to create a simple function over here. So over here, we need to write all the logic regarding inserting data into our database. And if you recall, we're using Sequelize. So Sequelize has a very easy way of inserting data into the database, and I'll show you guys how to do so. Well, the first thing we have to do is we need to recognize how are we going to receive the data in this request, right? We need to be able to have a form in the front end, in the client side in React, where you write the code in your React application where whenever you submit that form, we're going to receive that data from that form, the format of JSON. So it's going to be an object, right, containing three different properties, three different keys, which are the title, the username, and the post text, which is the columns that we created in our table. So to access that data that we're going to send in the front end, we actually have something called the body in the request. And the body is just an object containing all the data that you're sending in that request. So technically over here, whenever we call this request over here, this post request, we need to send some data. So that data can be accessed like this. We can create a variable called post and set it equal to rec.body, like this. And now, whenever we make that request and we send an object containing the title, the post text, and the username as the body, it's now equal to that post variable over here. So if we want to access just the title, we can say something like post.title. Or if we want to access the post text, we can say post text, like this. Right now, we're just assuming that we're only going to be sending objects in that format in this request. However, later on, you guys will see exactly how we do this. But first, we need to get the data, right? We're just getting over here the post object inside of our post request. So right now, what we have to do is we actually need to get our post variable over here. And to do that, we come here at the top and we just say something like const. Then we say, and then we just destructure the post variable, the post model that we created. So we're going to say require dot slash, actually 2 dots slash models. And we can just grab the user over here, or the posts over here, sorry about that. So the posts like this, and this is an instance of the model that we created inside of here. So what we need to do now is we need to say, okay, this is a table that we want. So instead of that table, when we make this request, I want to create, so Sequelize has this function called create, and all you have to pass inside of here is you need to pass an object that has the same format as the model you created. So in theory, our model over here for posts include a title, a post text, and a username. So this is the exact same format as the variable post over here that we created. So we just need to pass this variable inside of here, and this will literally create our like we will add this into our database. However, there is a caveat, because what happens with Sequelize is you should make it everything is asynchronous, which means that inside of this function we have to pass an async, and we need to say await over here. And the reason for that is because we want to be able to like wait for the data to be inserted before moving forward with the request or anything else, right? We need to make sure that it has inserted into the database, or else we need to do something different. If there's any errors, we need to understand what's happening, right? So at the end here, let's just return the post so we actually see if everything is working perfectly. So the logic behind here is we're making a post request to the routes, or to the posts route, and instead of it, we grab the post data from the body that is sent in the request. Then we call the Sequelize function to create, which basically all it does is it inserts into our table called posts that exists in our MySQL workbench, as you can see. And then we just return, as a response from this API request, we just return the same data that we sent, just so we can have like a visual like confirmation that we sent the correct object. We can actually test this. You can see that when we refresh this data, when I query everything that exists in my table, there's nothing inside of it, because we actually haven't put anything inside of our table. However, now if we come to our API tester over here and we go to create post and we try to insert some sort of body, so I'm gonna say that in Insomnia you can choose what kind of body you're passing. Obviously we're going to pass JSON, and inside of here we pass as the body an object containing a title, and let's just give like a random title. I'm just going to call it random title just for a test. Then pass a post text, and the post text is just like a bunch of letters. Imagine that this is kind of like what you're gonna have in your website, right? And then we need to pass a username, and this username will be PedroTech. Now what should happen when we send this request is it should first go to the post route and see if there's any post requests in this route, and there is. We can see it over, oh, accidentally opened this. We can see it over here, there's a post request, and then it should execute all of this. It should get the body that we're passing over here, this object over here, and set it equal to post. And then our Sequelize table will automatically insert that post data inside of the table. And at the end, we should return back, like over here, we should return back the same JSON that we sent, just because I just wanted to return something back. And now, if we click on this button, it's actually not going to work. And the reason why it won't work is because in Express, if you send like the JSON like this as the body, it hasn't been parsed yet. So to fix that, to be able to access the body being parsed directly in Express, it's actually pretty simple. All you have to do is just come over here and say app.use express.json, and that's gonna fix any issues that that possibly causes, right? So let's come over here now that that's done, and let's try to send a request. When we click send, you'll see that now we get a status of 200, which means it's okay. We get back the data that we sent because that's what we did over here. We said that after everything is done, it should return the same post that we sent. And most importantly, you realize that if we got to this line, it means that we must have passed this line, which is the line that inserts data into our database. So let's check to see if the data is actually in our table. When we refresh this, you see that we have added our first row into our table, which is great because it means it's working. So it has an ID of 1 because it is the first row we inserted, and also it records like the date where we did this and also the data that we sent. So that means we have our post request done. It's pretty simple. You see that if we're using Sequelize, it makes everything so much, it makes everything look so much cleaner, which is great, and it's working perfectly. But now let's just make the other request that we want to have, which is just a GET request that returns every single element in the that we have in our table, right? Because we want to get all the posts so that we can display in our main page. So to do so, let's actually just add some more examples over here. I'm just gonna add another example post. I'm gonna call it example 2, and let's just add more random stuff and say that this is from someone called Jake, something like that. Let's insert that. Let's see if it's in our table. You see we have inserted. I'm gonna create another example. So this is an awesome post, and again, just random stuff, and it's gonna be from I don't know, Kane, something like that. I'm gonna send this post, and now we have 3 examples in our table, which is enough for us to build our GET request, which just gets the data from the table and just returns it in as the response from our GET request. Okay, so how do we do that? Well, it's actually extremely simple with Sequelize. All you have to do is, you have this post instance over here, right? So we literally just have to come over here, create a variable called list of posts, like this, set it equal to posts, and then use the function find all. This is literally it. This function should go through the table, generate the SQL to select every element from the table, and just set it equal to this variable that we created over here. But again, we need to do this asynchronously, so every time you're using some function from Sequelize, make sure that your function over here is async, and wherever you're using the Sequelize function, you have to make it so it's await. So we're awaiting to receive back every single element from the table, and then at the end we just return this element like this, list of posts. So let's check to see if this works, right? Let's come to Insomnia and let's go to the GET request. You can see it's a GET request to the posts route, which means it should be working. And now if I click send, we return back a list of all the objects that we have in our table. We have the first post that we added, we have the second, the third. It means it's working, right? So if we try to add something else, I'll just call this example 4. And again, put more random words, put a random name, we send this data, and then we query this data again. It should appear the number 4 at the bottom. So now we actually finished both of our main requests, or main endpoints that we're going to have in our API, which means that in the next video we're going to start building our front end. We aren't finished at all with our backend because later on in the series, maybe in the 4th or 5th video, we're going to implement a comment section for just as if you look at a post, you click on the post and you want to, I don't know, comment something about it. I'm going to show you guys how to do that, and that requires getting a new table in MySQL, making some sort of connection between them so that you're able to write comments in like for every post, right? So that's basically it for this video. If you enjoyed it, please leave a like down below and comment what you want to see next. If you're enjoying the series, please let me know what you want to see, and if you're enjoying the series, please let me know, give me some feedback, because I'm always trying to improve the way my tutorials go. So if you're interested in letting me know what you're thinking, just leave a comment down below. And yeah, that's basically it. Really hope you guys enjoyed it, and I see you guys next time.